Hey, this is Black Belt Dragon, and now to make sure that you understand my thoughts of what I think of the entire series so far. Here are my thoughts for the first season of MLP. Now, I want to explain how I got into it. How I got into it was my friend Crashjack Fan 1994. He introduced me to the show after looking at a couple of episodes. He told me just see the first two parts, then see these certain episodes. I kind of know what that I think that you know what you're gonna like. But I can tell you that I didn't see the first two parts. Like, I want to admit that I did not see Friendship is Magic, the first two parts, like the first episode of the show. I actually went a little further, deeper into season one, like later on. I didn't start with the beginning, and I felt that was really wrong because I should have began with the first two episodes because it explains everything, and I kind of got confused after I skipped into a few episodes. Okay, so I will be talking about my favorite episodes of season one. Okay, so my overall thoughts of the first two-parter of Friendship is Magic is that when it begins, obviously it kind of starts out like a little bit of a storybook, kind of like starting out like almost every single fantasy film. But when they start explaining the story, I was like, what is this? What is this, Legend of Zelda or something? Like, when they explain, like, the way they explain the story, I mean, yeah, it's a little corny, but from what they're saying, like, when I saw the beginning, it was like they try to take this very seriously. Like, it's a very serious tone when they're talking about the beginning. And as soon as they get to the main characters, it's pretty much a fun ride there. I thought it was very good. It was, but going back to it, it's still kind of very good. I love the first two parts. It was a very good start to the beginning of a very wonderful show. Okay, now let me talk about my favorite episodes of the first season. My favorite episode of the first season is Look Before You Sleep and Feeling Pinky Keen. Those are only two of my favorite episodes. I felt Look Before You Sleep was a kind of very calm episode. A bunch of people found this episode to be pretty boring, that nothing really happens in this episode, but I don't think so. It kind of feels like that one hated episode from Breaking Bad, The Fly. Even though that nothing's going on and nothing really is needed to be fixed, there's something good about it. Like, there's these conversations that you find in these episodes. I've actually seen episodes like this, something like in SpongeBob SquarePants, where it's wet painters, where SpongeBob and Patrick are just trying to paint a house, but there's something in there that just drives it to be very entertaining, and I kind of found that here. I found this to be a very peaceful episode. It was. I mean, obviously there are things that obviously people wouldn't like, because it kind of feels a little boring. I mean, it's nothing but Applejack, Rarity, and Twilight having a slumber party, and nothing really special happens besides a little bit of an incident that happens in the end where a tree literally almost destroys Twilight's house. But I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was a very balanced episode. It tried not to be too big. It tried not to be weak. I thought it was a very balanced episode. I thought it was very good. Hey, the episode Feeling Pinky Keen, this is my very personal favorite episode because I felt that this episode was really funny. I mean, gosh damn, it was funny. There were just like moments. So the episode involves Twilight trying to figure out how come Pinky senses things when kind of like she gets this little twitch in her body, like her tail like gets a twitch, or like her eye twitches, or her hoof twitches. Like, she gets twitches every time, like, something happens, an incident's gonna happen. I found this very funny because I feel like the performance of Tara Strong playing as Twilight here was done so hilarious that it just made me laugh like out loud. It made me laugh so loud, it was crazy. Like my favorite parts are when she's getting hurt. Like every time she's trying to spy on her to see if something happens, somehow it just everything like every cartoonish thing you can think of just happens to her. It feels like a Wile E. Coyote episode, and it's just crazy. But then there's a little bit of a plot that goes on that we find out while Twilight's getting hurt. It seems like a big incident's about to happen. Pinkie feels something, and so they go to Fluttershy, who is somehow in trouble. But then they find out that she wasn't really in trouble, and then now Twilight just explodes and turns into a Pokemon, and she literally gives up. But then Pinkie finds out that it was just her not believing her, and that's pretty much it. I don't understand, like, the lesson in the episode is trying to involve, like, trying to believe, or it's very hard to believe anything that you can see. I found that to be a very simple, nice lesson, but really the comedy is what makes this episode. I also want to talk about one thing. When you look at this episode, this is where every time I look at this episode, I'm starting to notice a little bit of flaws. There's actually animation flaws in this episode. Obviously, with a show, there has to be animation flaws, and there are animation flaws in the show. Like, you just have to spot them very, very hard. When you're looking at the show or any cartoon show, there's always somehow an animation flaws. For example, for the original 1980s TMNT TV series, there's a lot of animation flaws in that show. But for this show, I mean, they took care of the animation very well, but you still find little flaws there. I won't explain too deep on like what the flaws are, but I want you to look at that episode and see if you can find those little animation flaws that are in that episode, because they're very interesting to look at. Okay, now I'll be talking about my hated episodes of season 1. Those episodes are Griffin the Brush Off and Showstoppers. Okay. For Griffin the Brush Off, the reason why I hated this episode is because I felt that the characters were very mean-spirited. I mean, I don't know, like, maybe you don't understand my point, but let me try to explain. The episode begins with Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash trying to pull pranks on everybody, and then Rainbow Dash's friend Gilda comes over. She somehow doesn't like Pinkie because she feels like she's stealing her friendship. So now one time Pinkie actually finds out that she's pretty bad herself. So then Pinkie Pie makes a party, then Gilda gets pranked in the party so much that it's kind of very hard to watch when you really think about it deep. When you really think about it, it's kind of very hard to watch. I mean, maybe some people find this funny, but I did not find it funny when she was getting pranked. So of course, Rainbow Dash tells her off, and pretty much we don't see her anymore. It was the end of Gilda for the entire show. What I mean by the mean-spirited part is just that I felt that the characters, I mean, they were in character, but they seem to have been very mean in this episode. I mean, the pranking thing, for a person who's a big fan of comedies, I understand pranking. I mean, if it's like these small pranks, they're fine. I mean, the beginning pranks are what they do at the beginning in the episode, Pinkie and Rainbow Dash doing pranks. I thought those were very funny, but the pranks that happened after, I felt were very, kind of cruel in a way. Very, very cruel. And I just couldn't stand it. Now, you might find this a little strange, but I kind of felt bad for Gilda. I mean, yes, she wasn't written very well. That's another flaw of the episode. But here's the thing. you had to have been in this situation one time where you had an old friend and then he meets your new friend, then he gets jealous. Like, you have to have a situation like this, and I've had a few times where I've actually had situations like this, but usually in the end we try to talk it over and see if we can't just, you know, let bygones be bygones. And that's what I think would have been much more better if Gilda was written well, and that's what the episode would be going for. And somehow that's not what the episode was going for, and I felt that even the characters, even the background pony as well as the main ponies like Twilight and Applejack, were very ignorant in this episode and also pretty mean. Like, I mean, they don't do any mean stuff, but like in the point of when they're trying to look at Gilda or even laughing at her when those big pranks happen, I felt that was really wrong, and it's just, I just didn't felt right when watching it. Like, it still really, like, it's very painful for me. I don't think it's like the worst episode, but I don't find it very good either. If the characters were written well, like if Gilda was written well, if like the comedy was a little better, and if it would have been like a little bit, you know, less mean, maybe I would have given this episode a hard time. I don't think it's the worst. Okay, now showstoppers. This is my absolutely, personally #1 pick when it comes to my most hated episode of the show. Nothing compares to this horrible episode. Okay, but first let me begin on something. Let's just say that the CMNC, the Cutie Mark Crusaders, are like one of my favorite trios besides Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, and Jackie Chan, Yum Byun, and Sammo Hung from those many martial arts films, from many of Jackie Chan's films. And I found that they were a very fantastic trio when every episode that they're in always either be hit or miss, and I always enjoy what they do. They have very unique personalities from what I see, and I really like the Cutie Mark Crusaders. This episode in particular just puts it out that they're just putting out that they're incredibly stupid. What do I hate about this episode? The writing is gosh awful. The comedy is gosh awful. And the characters act incredibly stupid. And fourth, it was the ending. What was the ending? So, okay, explaining the episode is about the Cutie Mark Crusaders. They enter into a talent show where they're going to see if they can get their cutie marks through their talent shows and see if they can find their true talents. It begins with Applejack giving their own, like, little playhouse, their like, treehouse, club to hang out in. And that was very nice. It was a very nice beginning. But then early on, when the episode finally like keeps going, we find out what their destinies are destined to be. Apple Bloom is destined to be a carpenter. Scootaloo is destined to be an athlete, and Sweetie Belle is destined to be a singer. They literally pull that off pretty quickly, and I thought that, wow, they might be bringing good pacing here. But no, they completely ignore that those are their destinies and doesn't want that at all. And they don't figure it out. Let me get this straight. You find things that you're very good at and somehow don't proceed to be good, to see if it's true your destiny. Really? Right in front of your faces? Okay, let me continue. So of course they try to find their destinies and they can't, but then their teacher, Miss Cheerly, tells them that they're going to there's going to be a talent show and it would be nice if they enter. So what do they think of? They think of trying to make a rock band. A rock band to try to, be part of the episode, to see if being a rock band can tell them what their cutie marks are. So you know what happens? Scootaloo writes the song, Sweetie Belle makes the costumes and decorations, and Apple Bloom is involving in the dancing. Tell me where you don't see that correctly. So, of course, when they go into the talent show, everyone else is, bringing out their talents, and, of course, they suck. They end up sucking so bad that it's just really painful to watch that. Oh, when they sang, I think my ears bleed. Literally bleed. Oh. My gosh, my ears were bleeding to how much that they were singing, and oh gosh, their singing was so awful, and that's just a big shame because one of the actresses who plays them is a very talented singer, and I thought that was very terrible. Oh, okay, now also the ending. In the ending of the episode, it seems like people thought it was a comedy act, so they're given the awards of comedy trio. And so then Twilight, tells them that they have learned the lesson. They have learned their lesson, and just hope that they'll learn about their destinies. And in the end, they don't give a crap. What? So we just suffered through an entire episode, then finally given out a lesson, and they don't learn anything from the experience? They just ignore it completely. I hate this episode gosh damn much. So, yeah, they don't learn their lesson at all. Pretty much nothing. We just suffered through them being idiots. Probably the worst comedy I've ever seen. And we just sat down and it was pretty much a waste. I hate this episode so damn much. Yeah, so those are my most hated episodes of the first season, but like I said, but my overall impression of the first season, I actually thought that most episodes were very good. I especially like The Best Night Ever because the finale, The Best Night Ever, is them going into the Grand Galloping Gallop. There's a musical number. The lesson is that it's better to be with your friends when you're at a party because that's where you're going to have the most fun. And at the end of the episode, they go into a diner and they're mostly just talking to each other and their experience, and they somehow have more fun than they did in the party. That was amazing. I thought that episode was very amazing and very well done, very written. It's a very well written episode. Because when I saw that episode, after seeing that episode, the same experience happened to me, at pretty much a year later. It was just amazing that this episode was kind of very accurate. The Best Night Ever. I thought it was a very well written episode. The comedy was very good, and I felt that the characters brought out their best performance in that episode. I just, yeah. So my overall impression of season 1, I felt like it was a good starting season. It's a good start to probably one of the best shows that I've ever watched. So yeah, that's pretty much my overall thoughts of Season 1, Black Belt Dragon, signing out. And I'll see you on my next vlog of MLP Friendship is Magic. Hello everybody, thank you for watching my video on my thoughts of Season 1. I hope you had a good time knowing that, you know, all the good episodes and bad episodes that I pretty much liked to that first season. I will be releasing my thoughts on the second season after a few MLP Season 5 vlogs, but I will be releasing it. And always try to subscribe and the little subscribe button there. And also, if you also want to check out my friend Crash Jack Fan 1994's channel, I managed to put his channel link below, and pretty much he has a lot of good stuff. There are some where he draws some very cool art from video game characters and some movie characters, and that's pretty cool. If you want to see some more MLP videos that I've done, then there are a few ones that I put up there. I did one if MLP was going to be making video games for home consoles, my Equestria Girls Rainbow Rocks review, as well as the first episode of Season 5 I put in there. Also, I reviewed a movie known as Mr. Turner. Okay, have a very nice day, and remember, you mess with this dragon and you'll feel the burn.